Welcome to another episode of the Pennock Knockdown, a podcast where we unpack key strategies and tactics within the marketing lanes. I'm joined today by Avery West. She is the founder of My Name is Avery Marketing Agency. She specializes in female owned brand development and small firm launches. Avery, it's so great to have you on the show today.
Thank you for having me, Nikki. It's great to be here.
Well, Avery, tell me a little bit about what led you to founding My Name is Avery Marketing Agency.
Yeah, absolutely. So since I graduated college, I've spent the past 10 plus years in marketing, mostly at agencies and most recently startups, leaning healthcare. And as we all know, working at startups can be tough, right? It's like a lot of demand. You might experience a little bit of burnout. I certainly did. So I took a pause a couple years ago with my full-time role at a healthcare startup, just to reassess what I wanted to do. So with that came some freaking out, some relaxing, some traveling, some sleeping, which was great. And funny enough, I started teaching swimming. And I did so volunteering at first. And for context, I live in LA, so it's warm year round and all the pools are outdoors. And I'm a swimmer. I've always loved it. So started volunteering, started teaching, mostly children, and was like, oh, I really like this. Maybe I'll start my own private swim lesson business, right? So keep in mind at this point, I'm not sure if I even want to do marketing anymore. And I start getting a couple of private clients here and there. And I'm like, oh, this is viable. This is a thing. People want this in LA. Okay, who's my niche? What does my brand look like? What does my logo look like? What would my website say? All these sorts of things, all to the point where I had, a full brand deck with mission, vision, core values, all these things, a website. I was fully up and running and launched a business, right? So here I am being like, I don't want to do marketing anymore, yet having a really excellent time starting my own little swim lesson business. So then I thought, maybe there's something here that I actually do like. And what I've discovered is that it's a few things. It is marketing and branding, but it's the full context, right? It's soup to nuts. I want to be with you from the beginning. And it's women. I love helping women out. So with that comes the foundation of My Name is Avery, which is my marketing agency that helps female-owned startups, small businesses grow and get themselves out the door with a really good brand.
That's awesome. Well, I love that your background spans so many different areas and in like ways in which you help brands, right? So being at agency side, obviously, like a lot of the structures and routines that are best presented from an agency's perspective, being at the healthcare companies, what it's like to be in-house, startups or other, and then building your own brand and kind of stepping into all the positioning of the swim coaching business. Super, super cool. I want to ask a little bit more since you do work so heavily within healthcare. What are any of like the trends happening in that industry or technologies from that industry that you're really kind of excited about and keeping your eye on?
Yeah, I think there's a convergence of two trends. And one is going to be a little bit broad and obvious, but of course, AI, right? Everyone's talking about it. Sometimes it can be used poorly, sometimes it can be used for good. So when I think of AI in healthcare, I think of like a very secure, helpful partnership between practitioners and AI tools that actually help with prevention as opposed to just treatment. And specifically bringing it back to women and women's healthcare. These tools can help us prevent cervical cancers, breast cancers, all sorts of things that are so often overlooked, especially with women in the medical field, that one, I'm super excited to see that there's real prevention happening. And, if women aren't feeling listened to, like these tools can step in and do so. And also, I, have a little armchair theory that these AI tools in partnership with doctors, practitioners, caregivers, can offload some of the things that humans are not as good at, like these examining these images and stuff.
Yeah.
Um, And with that partnership comes the opportunity for caregivers to offer more compassionate care and focus on that as the main value add. Because studies show that compassionate care improves outcomes exponentially. So I think these AI tools can and will and are enabling that compassion.
Love it. Very cool stuff. All right. Thank you for sharing that. I think it's, I'm not that close to the healthcare industry overall, aside from being a customer of it. So it's great to hear your point of views there.
Mm.
Walk me through, like, let's talk about your lane of excellence a little bit more. So walk me through maybe something that you've been positioned to do from a branding or launch strategy with a brand, a business that, worked out really favorably, where you're just like one of your most proudest moments in terms of getting a brand to the next level.
Yeah, absolutely. My mind immediately goes to my most recent project, which is a healthcare firm, a healthcare consulting firm, focused on sort of transformation. All female owned. They're called Mitocon. If you want to check out their website or anything. Um, but again, it was soup to nuts. So from beginning to launch, my team and I did their brand. And when I think about this question, I'm like, okay, but what makes a brand successful? Sure, the website looks great. It reads so well, especially in my opinion, but I'm biased. They're getting feedback from clients that they love it. They're getting new business. There's growth, all these things that make a brand launch successful, right? But when I really think about internally, and I think many marketers who listen to this, and maybe you can relate, what also makes a brand launch successful is that thereafter, after you have your defined brand, your guidelines, your copy, all of that, copywriting for website content and otherwise should be easy. And website copy is like never easy. Copy's never easy. It's hard. It's a really hard job to do. But when you have the basics down, a good mission, a good vision, your core values, all these things that we need, the copy should flow thereafter.
Yeah.
So, I'm super proud because anything we worked on since the launch of this brand of Mitocon has flowed, right? And I see that as like such a sign of success.
That's so important to point out because I was on a call with a social media agency the other day and a client, and the client's like, they've been around for 6 months, and they're like, we have a new sales deck, all of the new languages in there, like, please refer to that. We're then reviewing copy for social posts, and the client's like, where did you get this copy from? Like, it's not even right. And the agency's like, it's on your product detail pages. And so I think, that's a more nuanced example, but that's a instance where what you just described did not happen for this brand, right? She's like playing catch up. She's months in. She's like repositioning some of her story and track. And like, maybe that's common along early stages when you're trying to figure out what resonates. But it was just so haphazardly thrown together in this example. And I think, everyone has a good reason for what they did, because it's like, well, if it's on your website today and we're using your website as your source of truth, like, sorry, we did it wrong, is kind of how the agency felt. So I love that you said that, because I think it's often overlooked, I think, during brand launch or rebrand or reposition, where bits and pieces change, but the whole experience doesn't get the updated, elevated feel.
Right, exactly. Maybe what we say varies a little bit, how we say it and our point of view sticks, unless it needs to change and there's a rebrand. But for now, it should be clear what our take is on things.
Yeah. So, Avery, you're an expert in this lane. What do you do when a brand comes to you and they like are really hung on something that you're like, gosh, how do I convince them that that's not the right color, that's not the right whatever? Have you experienced things like that where you're like, do I just say yes and agree with what the client wants, or do I throw in my expertise and say, great idea, but let me convince you otherwise?
It's more the latter. I really try, especially as I've gotten older and like more confident in what I'm offering and have seen the success. It gets easier and easier to say, I'm telling you, you hired me and are paying me for a reason. Like, just trust me on this. And I do think that, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this too. Like, and getting hired as a small agency, pushing back and saying no to things within reason
Mhm.
brings you favor with the client. Like they're paying you for that expertise. So I think pushing back within reason and really relying on what you know is best and learning how to convince someone of that is kind of what it's all about.
Yeah, and I love that you said it comes with, like, maturity and just, getting older, because that definitely was the case for me. Some of my, younger, earlier to marketing team members on their first couple of calls with clients, I'll hear them say, "We're, considering this or this, like, what do you think?" And we're like, "Oh," it's we never wanna say, "Client, this is what we're doing," like, "Just sign off on it, it is the end." But sometimes, like, the questioning back and forth feels like maybe we don't really have an opinion, and I think that that's the last thing people want when they have external help.
Totally. And it's okay too. I do understand when you're on a client call with multiple people on your team, you sometimes want to take a minute to digest what the client says because there might be a scenario where account manager thinks it's a great idea, copywriter thinks it's a terrible idea, whatever it may be. So I would encourage anyone, I was going to say younger, but just anyone
Mhm.
to pause, like just pause and come back to it. If an idea comes up and we're not sure about it with the client, there's value in saying, we want to discuss that as a team. Can we get back to you with our recommendation?
Yeah. You brought up something that's piquing my interest a little bit, and that's like who's in the room on these conversations or calls you're having with brands. What do you who on the brand side, like who should be brought into the branding and launch strategy that you're helping them with?
Yeah, good question. Well, I know larger agencies have larger teams. That's an obvious thing. Mine is smaller. So when we do brand launches, from the jump, it is me who's sort of running the show, client communications, brand strategy. It's my partner, Erin Mapes, who's like a fantastic designer with a lot of brand chops as well. Just us two on the call.
Okay.
And from there, we build out a super clear, in depth, concise brand deck. And that brand deck should be able to inform the rest of the team that needs to get pulled in. So, does copywriter need to be on from the jump? Not necessarily. They need the brand deck that tells them how to write the copy. Does the developer need to be on from the jump? Probably not. You know, trust yourself to keep the team lean and small. Keep the experts working within the area that they want to work within, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I
What
keep
ab
it as lean as possible is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. And what about from the brand side? Like who are you seeing show up from the launching brand side?
From the client side,
Exactly.
yes. Okay. It is a requirement that the owners show up, the CEOs, the founder. I can't tell you the amount of times I've kicked off a brand project, be it at an agency or even in-house, where the CEO or higher ups were informed once decisions were made and they didn't like the decisions. It's so common, and sometimes it feels a little like, really? You need to involve the CEO in like a brand project? And hell yes, you do. Absolutely. They need to be involved from the jump.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I could see scenarios where they're like a little bit more of like almost acting as an extension of the board or like they're part of a board than they are like truly living, breathing the
Yeah.
brand decisions every day. But yeah, for us, like we're working in a space where brands are not that large yet. So the founders and CEOs are very much involved in making all the final decisions too. Um, are you seeing any changes in the way you're thinking through positioning brands or positioning the look of businesses compared to times past? And this could be 2024, it could be earlier, but are there any like macro or micro changes that you're kind of keeping your eye on to develop new things with clients?
I think I feel like I'm going to keep getting at a trend throughout this podcast. I talked earlier about compassion coming into the healthcare space. And I think it's coming into every space. And maybe that's just my lens, but hey, that's my lens. I think that we need as a society and in marketing, more realistic brands. It's so easy for AI to spit out a logo or some copy, but I think that there is such value in like the beautiful human air of branding. So I like to see sort of like less exact, less perfect logos and designs and more kind of like realistic flow within design. And that's a trend that I'm seeing across the board locally, like in LA, with branding and designing, and not just for restaurants or anything. I'm thinking B2B brands as well. So I'm seeing this like return to, or I want to see, and I am seeing this return to like human creativity. Um, I even had, as I was building out my marketing agency and thinking through my brand, I was thinking through like funny taglines. I love to like insert humor when I can. Um, and at one point I was like, maybe I should say something like, can I cuss on this podcast? A crappier logo than AI could ever give you, something like that. And what I mean by that is just like bringing the human back, bringing the compassion back within design and within copy.
I love that, especially coming out of this era where like TikTok was perfection, or Instagram rather was like it had to be so curated and perfect. And, it was really impossible for a lot of people, especially the emerging brands, to figure out how to do. And, they were looking so much less polished than other brands. So I think for especially the smaller brands, something like this is really refreshing. And then the large brands who already have the reach and scale, like, it's just a lot of fun to see the human element and the compassion and, like, authenticity come through. You are selling your services or trying to enroll brands and wanting to work with you versus your competitors, and you've been doing this for some time, so, like, I guess a question I have would be, what are you finding the clients you work with are looking for from service providers like you
Question.
now, and has that evolved and changed over time?
I think what I'm seeing, and keeping in mind I'm working with like very small firms, is so obvious, but not something we often take into account when we're thinking about outsourcing with marketing, which is that these people really want an extension of their team. They want someone who's like as bought in as they are, understands them, has their goals aligned, etc., and is like sort of willing to sign up for that. And Nikki, you and I have talked about like pricing and how difficult that is sometimes. And it's something I'm constantly curious about evolving. But yeah, I think the trend I'm seeing most is like, no, I don't just want someone to write social posts for me. I don't just want someone to, you know, create a brand, not really know anything about me and my founders, and then ditch. I want like a true partner. I would say that's the biggest one. I'm curious if that resonates for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think, your line of work is a little different in that, like, the expanded, like, long-term connection, whether it's a project and then you come back, at a later date for the round 2 of the project, what have you, but, like, the lanes of work my team and I specialize in is very transactional, right? So it's like if they don't like the results or they don't like the team member on my account who's working with them, they're very quick to let us go. And that's just the reality of like the paid media space and the SEO space. There's so many players in it. And even if you're like, I have this very differentiated way in which we work with brands, they've got to see it to believe it. So they've got to trust that you're going to follow through. And then if they see it, they don't believe it, or, whatever, it's not a good fit, like, they're giving you notice in some cases, 3 months in. So, I love that you're saying that because where we do see the most success is, like, we've had a handful of brands since 2020 who still work with us, and, like, we've grown significantly as a symptom of their growth that we've been able to give them for their own business through the relationship. So, ultimately, we're looking for, like, 2-year relationships. We're not asking them to commit to really anything beyond like a 60-day commit and then it's 60-day out. But the best ones, I think, really prove that care and curation and like attention to what the brand is trying to do really resonates. So I couldn't agree more with what you were just saying there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think
Exactly. Exactly.
what it comes down to is people like to work with people they like and trust. You're there helping them build the brand from the jump and in there in the weeds with them, doing a good job, of course. Then they trust you and they want to keep working with you.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. So we're getting close to the end. I like to ask this to all the guests that come on. And it's really, Avery, if you were back in your early 20s, getting out of school, what advice would you give yourself in, how to traverse the landscape of professionalism, directions to go in, all of that good stuff? What
Oh
advice
my
do you have
gosh,
for
Nikki,
yourself?
if I could go back, there's so many things I would tell myself. Um, I think the biggest one is to, for real, trust what you're good at. One, acknowledge that you're good at something. I know that can be the hardest part. And not to get too deep psychologically, but I feel like often as 23-year-olds, like shoved into the corporate world with a bunch of people that are often older than us and very competitive and very kind of in the slog of day to day, it's like hard to remember that you have value, but you do. So if you enter the workforce and you keep thinking, God, I really like this marketing automation stuff. Like, go with it. For real, go with it. I wish I had. For me, I noticed that the marketing automation stuff was in need, so I really went that route. Did I like it? No. And so did I burn out when I kept trying to do that? Yes. Did I like at the very beginning of my career branding, team development, design, and campaign development? Yes, absolutely. But I think it's important to remember that when we decide to focus on something, we are deciding not to focus on another thing, right? So, my biggest piece of advice would be to really think through what you like and what you're good at, which are often one and the same, and roll with it and develop it and hone it and understand that it's valuable.
I love it. Do you think the current generation is going to do that better than we did? I feel like the
Yeah,
vibes have
I
changed so
think
much.
I think they are. I really think they are. I think for a few reasons. One, that kind of work takes a lot of introspection. And for better or worse, as the generations come along, I think we're getting better and better at that. Uh, with like more widespread use of therapy and an understanding of work-life balance and prioritization of self-care. Um, all these things are really important for millennials as well as Gen Z. Um, and I forget which generation is after that, but definitely them as well. Uh, Gen
Gen
Alpha,
Alpha
yeah.
and Gen
I think that they have an understanding from adolescence to be introspective, learn what they like to do, and prioritize it. I cannot speak to how the economy is going to shake out and what that's going to look like. Um, but for now, I can confirm that I do think that the following generations are going to be a little better about honing on what they're good at and what they like to do. Curious what your thoughts are.
I mean, I think you said it well. I don't think I would have any more to share other than regurgitating what you just said. So I couldn't agree more, which I know is a way I've framed a lot of things you've said today. So really appreciate.
Well, I did think of something else to add, actually. So, it's related to like what I would tell my younger self and team building and what I think through now, and reflecting on my project with MitoCon. So, when I think about the team I put together, which is one of my favorite things to do, I love to put a team together and like, use those skill sets where they matter most. I think there's a lot of value, especially in healthcare or really any niche where, okay, I have the healthcare background within this team, but does everyone need a healthcare background? I don't really think so. So, my business partner, Erin, comes to me with a lot of experience in finance and branding for small financial firms, which she's amazing at, such a brand expert. So pulling that kind of expertise in. The copywriter who did a fantastic job, the client was raving about her work, comes from TV, you know? And of course, there are some things that she doesn't know about healthcare, but she doesn't really need to know because one, is covered in the brand deck, and two, it's covered by us. Um, and who would know how to better persuade and write compelling copy than someone who writes for TV?
Yeah, it's fair.
Um, so it's just a way to encourage hiring managers out there and really anyone looking to put together a team that not everyone needs to be an expert in the niche that you're in.
Yeah, it's very true. Awesome advice, and insight. So, Avery, I appreciate the time so much today. If people want to get in touch with you or follow you, where should they go?
Thank you so much, Nikki. They should go to mynameIsAvery.com. Has all my contact info. You can fill out a form. We can talk. You can also follow me on LinkedIn, Avery West.
Perfect. All right. Well, Avery, I really appreciate the time today.
Really appreciate yours too, Nikki. Thank you so much.
Thank you.